the Chile Antofagasta mission, I feel like is unique because the mission is really long. Chile is just real long in general, and it's about the top third of the country. And so from the top city, Arica, to Vallenar, it's about 22 to 24 hours on a bus. And let me tell you, there is not a single change in scenery in those 22 hours. My longest bus ride I ever took was 18 hours, so that's pretty normal. Almost every missionary has that. But I think it's unique in the fact that most cities in the United States, it's, there's one city and that just like merges into the next city and that merges into the next city. But the mission is not like that. You have a city and you can stand on top of a mountain and look at the city and just see the exact moment where the city ends. And then after that, it's just pure desert for hours and hours. And just between the two cities, there's nothing. There's no trees, there's no houses, nobody lives there. And so it's just really interesting that way, because the cities are really spread apart and there's just nothing in between them. And so that's the geography, I guess, of the mission. It's a desert, so it's hot. It gets cold because it's on the coast, but it's hot most of the time. There's two types of cities. So there's the cities on the coast, and then there's inland cities, and that's like Calama and Copiapó. And those two cities get really cold at night and really hot during the day. And so your skin gets really dry and your hair starts to break and to fall apart. And I've heard stories about people being in the inland cities during the winter and their lips crack and everything because it's just so dry. The whole mission is dry. It never rains. I felt rain once, but most missionaries don't feel rain. So it's real fun. Most of the cities are on the coast, and so you've got the coast and then you've got the Andes Mountains. So a lot of the areas are, you're just walking straight uphill all day. So you might lose weight. You would if it weren't for the bread. So the nearest temple is pretty far away. It's really hard for Chileans to be able to go more than once every couple years, if that. And that's if they put a really big priority on it. The nearest one for most of them would be Santiago, and that's probably a 2-day journey. In the north of the mission, they have Cochabamba in Bolivia that's close. So a lot of them will go there. It's about 12 hours, but it's a huge altitude change, so they all get sick. They all promise themselves they'll never go to Cochabamba again, and then they go the next year. But we're lucky in the fact that there's going to be a new temple at some point in Peru, and that'll be closer for a lot of the members. The church, as far as the church goes, it's struggling in the northern part of Chile, just mostly because of the mining culture. But something that was really interesting for me when I went there is almost every single ward has their own building. So that's kind of cool because it's usually in the middle of your area, and so it's really easy to take investigators to church. But it's hard for the members to clean it every week. But there's probably about, I used to know this, there's probably about 8 stakes in the mission, maybe a few more or less, and there's 2 or 3 districts, and so it's growing. It's growing slowly but surely, and those are big goals of the mission right now, is to double the attendance and double the temple recommends, and to get the members of northern Chile just really focused on the temple.
The church has been in Chile for a long time, actually. Probably 1 in 10 people you meet will be like, oh yeah, I think I was baptized into that church like 20 years ago. So it's really an interesting dynamic that way. There are churches really like close to each other. Like you won't have to travel far to church. They're usually within walking distance of you. because there's a lot of members. And the church is very well established in some areas, and then there are some places where it's not, obviously. Like mostly in the rural areas, they tend to struggle just because there aren't as many people. But all of it's like, there are really great members no matter where you go. Like there are some long time, really strong people that have been members for over 30 years or 40 years, however long it's been since the church like first arrived there. And so in the Concepcion mission, it's really exciting because they actually just barely broke ground for a temple. And it's about a block away from where the mission president lives. And it's so exciting for me. Like when they announced the actual groundbreaking, I just cried because I was so overcome thinking like, wow, it was like my efforts were worth it, because they announced it several years ago that they were going to build a temple. And then the whole time I was there on my mission, it was just, okay, when are they going to do the temple? Like, are we slacking? Like, what are we missing? Because you always think, oh, if they haven't started yet, it's because we're not ready. There's something missing, we got to step it up. So it was really, really exciting when I heard they were going to break ground for the temple. And that will be done in a couple of years, I guess. I don't know. But for now, it's like a really important time to prepare all of the saints and prepare all the people to go to the temple because it's going to be there soon. And it's right now there's only one in Santiago, so that's several hours away for everyone in the Concepcion mission. And those in like the south part of the mission are even farther. Like it's a really long trip. They have to schedule like a day or two to be able to travel up to the temple, and it's going to be a huge blessing to have one so close by. So it's just a really, really important time right now for the mission. Just preparing everybody for that and teaching them about it, teaching them about family history so everybody can be prepared to go. I think is super important too. So that's just something that was really exciting. So the mission itself it goes from, Concepcion, where the mission office is, that's like shared with the Concepcion South mission. And then it goes up north. The highest north is a town called Linares, and it's about 3 hours away from Concepcion. About 3 or 4 hours. I can't remember. I never served in that area, so I'm not sure how far away it is. So the mission itself geographically isn't that big. You can travel anywhere within a few hours. And the areas tend to be pretty big for walking, but there's lots of buses and taxis and stuff. A lot of it is on the beach too, on the coast, so that's really beautiful. One of my first area, we were right up on the beach. Like the beach was part of our ward, our area, so it was really, really exciting. And we would go running in the mornings and run to the beach, and it's gorgeous. It's a really beautiful place. And then everyone will tell you, oh, what are you doing here? You need to go to the south. You need to visit the south, and it's so much more pretty there. And we're always like, but we're working here. We can't go to the south, And they're always like, no, but you have to. Like when you're done, go there. It's so much more beautiful. I'm like, I think it's pretty here. So that was always funny.
So the mission spans from just south of Concepcion to a city called Loncoche. It's about 8 hours in bus in north to south. And it goes from the coast to the Argentinian border. So Chile's pretty skinny, so that doesn't go very far. In the mission, there are 10 stakes and districts. There are 4 districts and 6 stakes. And there's a temple announced that's going to be right on the border between the mission Concepcion and Concepcion South, but it has not been started yet. One of the last areas I served in was in the biggest city in my mission. It's called Temuco. And the ward mission leader there, he was one of the first missionaries that left from Temuco to go out and serve the mission. He served up north in Santiago. But it was really cool to see these first generation saints because the church had been there probably about 40 years in the bigger cities. Some cities only 30, 25. But the church had been there about 40 years, and he was baptized when he was 8. So he was one of the first not convert baptisms because his parents were baptized, and then he was baptized a couple months later. And his family was one of the first 11 families, I think, that was baptized in the city. And so it was really cool to see him. His son was on a mission while I was serving there, and he was the ward mission leader. And it was just such a cool thing to see how the church was starting to grow and develop generation on top of generation. I served in one of the smallest branches in the mission, and our average was somewhere around 20. We had one Sunday where with the missionaries there were 12 of us in church, but there are some units that have 200, 250 people that go. It's great. They're huge, and they're really good, strong branches and wards.
So the mission is the east side of Santiago. Santiago is the capital of Chile. So it's a big city. There are 6 million people that live in this one valley that's just surrounded by mountains. And we're only on half. The mission is only in half of the city, or even a quarter. We're on the side of the mountains, which I loved. And it's one of the smallest proselyting missions in the world. So it doesn't cover a lot of ground space. The wards are really small in size. That's why we're a walking mission. If you had a car, you would be done in like an hour. The mission goes all the way to the border of Argentina, but we don't go there because it's all mountains. So we're just in the city. And I was actually, my first ward was one of the first wards in Chile, especially Santiago. Our church building was one of the first that was built about 50 years ago. So that was a neat experience. I knew the second member of the church in Chile. We had lunch with her, and then she passed away while I was there, actually. But it was a great legacy to be a part of. Santiago East is the only mission with a temple in Chile. So it's a great blessing. We get to go. We can take our investigators to the temple for tours around the outside. It's just, I think there's a special spirit in this mission because we have the temple. That's their favorite. But they also have something called a bonobon, which is a round truffle type candy, but it's crunchy and chocolatey. Those are the two best that they sell.
The mission, Chile Santiago North, it's a crazy mission because it's one of the smallest missions in the world. There's a few more that are smaller, I believe. I believe that Chile Santiago East is smaller, I think, but Santiago North is very small. You can get from the point A to point B from the farthest point of our mission to the other end of our mission in about 2 hours in a car, 3 hours. And between one stake and the other stake, it's maybe 15 minutes in a car. And there's about 8 stakes, I don't really remember, 8 stakes and maybe 1 or 2 districts. And they were all really close. There was one stake outside of Santiago. It's called Los Andes, and there was another one called Colina. That was a district. So they were, of course, a little farther. They were about an hour and a half to 2 hours outside of Santiago. But everything within Santiago was really close. You could just hop on a bus and get to the next stake. And a lot of times when you get called to a new area, you pass through one of your old areas to get to your new area. So it was fairly small because Santiago is really big and people live on top of each other. There's a lot of people that share homes. So there's a lot of people that live in one home. So the boundaries, they're small, but it goes from about half of Santiago, of course, north, about 2 hours, but it also touches the border with Argentina because Chile is really skinny. So it has the northern part, the northern half of Santiago. It touches Argentina, and we also have the Easter Islands and I don't know how to say it in English, La Isla de Juan Fernandez. It's just an island called Juan Fernandez. And so lucky missionaries get to go there, and they get to enjoy the experience on the island, maybe learn different dialects. They can learn something that's called Rapa Nui. It's the language of the people that live on Easter Island. Two of my companions served on Easter Island. So that's really exciting about our mission. And the most exciting parts of Santiago, the very touristic areas are in our mission. A lot of other missionaries from Santiago East and South and West, they get permission from their mission president to go into our mission to go see the sites, because we have like fun hills that you can climb up. There's like castles, there's malls, things like that. So our mission's very interesting. Of course, me being very biased, it's the best mission in Santiago just because there's so many things to do. And there's people from all over the world. There's a lot of Colombians. You'll find yourself with a lot of Haitians. If you're in an area called Quilicura, there's a lot of Haitians. Some missionaries in my mission learned Haitian Creole to be able to teach them. There's a lot of Peruvians that make really great food. Their food is spectacular. And you'll run into some Asians, people like that. So it's a pretty diverse mission for being a mission in South America, because most people wouldn't think that it's full of different cultures and countries. So that was very interesting. I really liked that. And there's areas where you can go up north into the mountains. There's snow up there, because it doesn't snow in Santiago, but if you want to go with your zone, some zones go up to play in the snow in the mountains, which is fun. So our mission has tons of diversity when it comes to people and landscape. If you want snow and mountains, there's snow and mountains. If you want the beach, you can go to the islands. So that's great about the mission Chile Santiago North.
So the southern border of the Viña del Mar mission is right next to Valparaiso. Well, Valparaiso is included in our mission. And then it goes all the way up to Las Serenas. So it's about, I would say, maybe 10 hours from top to bottom if you're driving and if it's good traffic. And the demographic is mostly Catholic, predominantly, but there's also a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses. There's a lot of, I don't know how to say this religion in English, evangelicos? I don't know what that would be in English. Evangelicals? I've never really heard that word in English, like, used as a religion, but yeah, there's a lot of reformative religions there. It's very Christian-based, which is a wonderful thing, that they're a faithful people, that they believe in Christ. The church is strong there. There's a lot of stakes. I don't think I could give a number. Maybe like 25 different stakes throughout the mission, but that could be completely inaccurate. I was just doing a rough estimate in my head. The ward sizes vary from about 80 to 150 attending each week. And yeah, it's wonderful. They're very like active and happy people when you get together and have like ward parties and stuff. They like to do the cueca, they like to dance, they like to make their hot dogs that they call completos. And yeah, so it's a very traditional people. I love their rich culture. Sometimes it's really helpful to the work because they feel close family ties and things like that, but also it presents a lot of challenges to, really come to appreciate their culture and be able to work with them and help them see the fullness of the gospel. And there's a lot of cultural things that definitely get to stay and that they can apply to the gospel and that the gospel applies to. But sometimes it's hard to break strong family traditions if that presents a difficulty of joining the church or of accepting the gospel. I would focus more on individual application, I think. As universal as the gospel is, it applies to each person individually. And so with every contact, I would try to be even more in tune. And obviously this is a skill I tried to develop, but I would be more in tune to the Spirit as to what specific principle of the gospel would help that child of God at that time because each opportunity to talk to someone is a chance to touch a heart. And even if they're having a terrible day, even if they have a stone cold heart, the light can still glow through you. And so at least that presents the opportunity for them to see that there could be something else for them in their life other than what they have. So I would just try and be very sensitive to exactly what Heavenly Father would want to present them with, even if they don't accept it, because that's up to them. That has nothing to do with the missionary or with Christ. Everyone gets their agency and they don't have to say yes to anything, but just focusing on needs, always. I love my Chilean family, and I love all of the members there that I got to work with, and I hope that everything I say always comes across positively, and showing how much love I have for my mission and all of the people there. At the same time, there are some habits or societal norms that do make it hard. For example, keeping commitments, and I realize this is for everyone. I think it's hard for everyone to keep commitments at one time or another, but in general, they usually struggle with keeping commitments, especially like going to church. It's really hard to help them go to church on Sunday mornings. Sometimes they'll feel and seem very excited during the week, and then all of a sudden just they don't show up. They won't come out of their house to go with you. So that is a struggle, is church attendance, and that is the number one thing I would say that usually interferes with progression towards baptism is coming to church. And so the number one thing that helps with that is helping to deepen their conversion. You know, if they can really gain a testimony of Jesus Christ and of the restored gospel, that there's a living prophet today, then they're going to be willing to do anything and change any habit to break that. So coming to church on Sunday morning, keeping that commitment is hard. And then certain times during the year, it's a little hard. When the World Cup is on, everyone is really focused on soccer. You say soccer in English. And it can be hard to find people to teach during that time. They have very distinct lunchtime hours. Lunch is their main meal. And so before and after about, I don't know, noon to 2:30 or 3, it's harder to find people to teach during those times as well. But you can contact and find people in the street if there is anyone in the street, and you just go off faith. So I served from June of 2014. Oh my gosh. Yeah, June of 2014 until December of 2015. And I had 2 different mission presidents. For the first year, it was President Federico Kenline. He's from Argentina, and his beautiful wife, Sabrina, and their family. They have a very young family, and it was great to feel their energy. And apart from my own father and Father in heaven, obviously, I would say that President Kenline is the most influential man on my life. He was very direct and so passionate about everything, and yeah, that was amazing. I love serving with him. And then my last 6 months was with President Diaz and his wife, and they are absolutely wonderful. That was so fun to be able to serve with 2 different mission presidents and their wives. And then, so I served in Reñaca Alto, and then I was transferred to Limache, and then I served in Agua Santa, and then the last one was Castillo Blanco. So those 4 different places.
So when I got to Chile, to Viña del Mar, before my time, so I served from 2006 to 2008, and there were a lot of baptisms that happened kind of in the 5 to 10 years before me, and not a lot of retention that happened during that time as well. And so kind of towards the beginning / middle of my mission, we really started to focus, in addition to converting, obviously, to going to find some of the less active members. We'd have wards that would be 400, 500, 600 people, the list would be that big, and a dozen, 20, 25 would show up to church on Sundays. And so my first ward in El Melon, we met in a tiny remodeled home, and we had, I think, 8 to 10 people every Sunday. A couple of families that would always come, and then an occasional person that wanted to come back or was visiting or something like that. And I felt like, that fluctuated a little bit throughout the region and in the area where I served, but that was that seemed kind of like the culture there, is that there were a lot of people who were baptized, but not a lot of people who continued to go faithfully. And so a lot of time was spent helping some of those recent converts remember why they got baptized, and helping some of those wards, especially with the priesthood activity, grow back into where they could be a full functioning ward rather than a branch or any of those kinds of things. A lot of Catholics, we ran into a lot of Catholics. I think down in South America that's kind of just how it is, but definitely found a lot of Catholic folks down there. And a lot of very active practicing Catholics, some that weren't, that just said they were Catholic because they didn't really want to talk to us and they were fine with how they were. But it was cool to see that the way that they invested in their faith, even though it was different, it was cool to see that that God meant something to them, and that they were still religious and faithful people, even if they weren't members of our faith. But I would definitely say, in terms of the LDS culture, it was a lot of, we had lots of baptisms and whatnot, and that's fine, but it was a lot of reactivating, and then on the other side, ran into a lot of Catholic folks. I had amazing companions on my mission. I loved all of them and got along with all of them, and some more than others, but I feel really blessed in that I really had great companions that I got along with really well. And one thing in terms of wishing, some stuff that I wish I knew before I went out, or if I could go back and do it again, I wish early on in my mission I would have understood the power of working with members. I kind of got trained by with the mentality that you just needed to go out in the street and you needed to knock doors, and if you did it long enough and put your shoulder to the wheel, that you'd find someone. And that happened sometimes, and it also didn't happen sometimes. And so for a lot of my mission, because that was the way I kind of, my first introduction to missionary work was, I remember pounding doors and being so frustrated, like, oh, we've already seen the Mormon missionaries, or, oh, we don't want to talk to you, or, oh, we're already members, or whatever. And I had a companion, kind of, not my first companion, but my second, that kind of helped me understand and see that, when you work with members, people who already have testimonies of what you're talking about, and that have an active interest in what you're doing, and you show that to people. Look, these are the kinds of awesome people we have in our congregations and whatnot. Then it's way easier. It's way easier to get missionary work done. And I wish I would have understood that. Like I said, I got an introduction with that second companion and other things throughout the mission. But if I could go back and do it again, I would have earlier on in my mission worked more closely with members, because we're all missionaries. We all are trying to be examples and live the gospel in our own ways. And so when you can kind of create that team that helps you do what you're trying to do, it's way easier. And, especially being a little blonde in this different culture, I didn't really fit in that way. And so finding people in the area and in the culture that believed these things that we were teaching, showing that to these investigators, it was amazing. And so definitely wish I would have worked with more members at the beginning, and I think I eventually figured that out, and the last part of my mission was probably more successful. It's hard to say what's successful and not, but it felt like I was doing more good because I was able to work with more members. So I served from 2006 to 2008 in the Chile Viña del Mar mission. My first area was El Melon, and that also comprised of a little city called Nogales. After that, I was there for 6 months. Then I moved to another area for one transfer, and that was called Coquimbo, which was in the northernmost part of my mission. And then I transferred to another place called La Serena for 6 months as well. Such beautiful places. As I'm saying these, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love all these places. After La Serena, I went to, I believe, a place called Achupayas. Right? Yeah. A place called Achupayas. After that, I went and I served in the main city of Viña del Mar. Nope. Right before that, I served in Quilpué. Then I went to Viña del Mar. After Viña, I went to... I'm getting all mixed up. 10 years ago. Man. Let me back it up. Served in La Serena. After La Serena, I moved to Quilpué. After Quilpué, I moved to Viña del Mar, the main city. After Viña del Mar, I moved to Achupayas. And then after Achupayas, I spent the last few weeks back in Viña del Mar because it was kind of a weird transfer thing where I was leaving in the middle of a transfer. But yeah.
As for the members, they're wonderful and I love them. Chileans are so funny and so spunky and energetic, and they're so loving. They can be very passionate as well, so sometimes they'll be easily offended. Most of the inactives that you'll meet are inactive because they were offended by someone at church and they just never got over it. That's very common. But for the same reason, they're very quick to love, they're very feeling, and they're very serving. They're not as good at accepting service, but they're very good at serving other people. So they'll always want to feed you. They'll always want to see if you're doing all right. Do you need me to fix your skirt for you? You're so skinny. Are you sure you're eating well enough? And all sorts of things like that. And they're wonderful. I think the members, I remember an experience in my last area where we were very popular with the members. Everyone loves you when you're the missionary. And I remember we needed to pick something up from one of the members' houses. And we had a rule in our mission that the sisters can't be alone with any man, even if he's a member. So we knocked on the door, and then the brother answered the door and he said, "Hey, I heard you're coming by to pick this up. Come on in." And we asked, "Is your wife home?" And he said, "She's not right now, but she will be soon." And it was raining outside, so he felt really bad having us outside. He said, "Just come in for a second, you'll be fine." And we looked at each other and, "No, we're fine. We'll just wait. If you could just grab the book or whatever it was that we were picking up, we'll just wait for you, and it's no big deal." And he came back out and he handed us the thing that we needed. And he looked at us and he said, "I know you have that rule where you can't be alone with us. Good job." And I was so affected by that. Because lots of times the members won't know all of the rules that the missionaries have, or they won't understand. They won't know that you have to be home at a certain time. They won't understand that you can't eat seafood, different things like that. Most of the time they will, but sometimes they won't. And just because they love you, they'll want to be with you, they'll want to help you, they'll want to do things that maybe they're not supposed to do for you. And it's tempting sometimes to choose love and popularity with the members over obedience. But that experience was so powerful for me because it was one of those times where I knew the members loved us. And because he loved us, he offered us his home so that we wouldn't get soaking wet. But when we were obedient and stuck to that, he respected us, not just liked us. And that makes a big difference for the miracles that you can do in an area. The members will always love you, but they won't always respect you as a missionary. And so if you really want to do well in your area, if you really want to work miracles, you need to be the missionary that everyone knows is doing what they should do, that everyone knows is doing what God wants them to do, and that everyone knows will be the one that can teach their friend the gospel. As for transportation, you will either walk or ride the bus, unless you become an assistant to the president, and then you'll have a car. But if you're a sister, that's not going to happen. I remember being really confused about the buses when I first got there, and it took me months to figure it out. But whenever you need to go somewhere that's not within walking distance, you find a bus who's the right kind of bus, so it's the right company and brand of bus, and it has to be the right route, which I didn't understand for a long time, and I did get lost a couple of times because of that. But they'll have a little sign at the front of the bus that'll say 10D or something like that, and it will list a couple little cities
and little stops that it will go to. And so you get to ride around the rickety bus everywhere, which I love. The buses are really fun, and they're fun places to talk to people. Other than that, you'll walk, which is better or worse depending on how hilly your area is. So I recommend low-soled shoes. I know we're not talking about fashion, but I rolled my ankle one time because I was wearing those really high, fat sister missionary shoes, and really low ones I always found to be better for me. But walking is fun. I thought walking was great. Kept us in good shape. Otherwise, sometimes members will drive you places. Not everyone has a car. As for just general living, the houses are not always the nicest, but they're what you need. So you'll go there to sleep, study, eat food at night because you'll be really hungry at night. There's not a dinner time, so you'll eat breakfast in your house, you'll eat a big lunch, and in my mission at least, we didn't eat dinner. The Chileans don't eat dinner. They eat something called once, which is more like a evening snack. So that's bread, that's a little ham and cheese sandwich that's toasted, or hot chocolate and fruit, something small in the evening, but you don't really stop to eat that. So you'll eat lunch and then you'll go all day walking around, talking to people, and then you'll come back home, you'll plan, and then you can eat a dinner or a snack at 10:30 or something at night. Okay, if I were to talk to me right after I had received my mission call, I would tell me not to stress out so much because it is going to be okay. I remember watching The District and just sitting there crying, thinking, I can't do that. I can't teach like that. This is, And I was so excited, but so afraid of the unknown and so afraid that I was not going to do it right. And that carried on into my mission for a little bit. But really, you just got to be yourself and do the best you can, and it will be fine. That's what I would say to me.
It was nice when I was in Chile because it was we'd celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Chilean mission while I was there, and so that was really kind of amazing to see how the church was able to, that we've been there for so long, that we had missionaries there for so long, and the church has been in Chile for quite a bit of time. It's pretty well established. They've got a lot of members. They got 2 temples now in Santiago and Concepcion. And I think one thing that I really liked about Chile, it's still growing, it's still kind of developing and learning to, all the things about the church, the structure, and how it should be run. But all the members that you meet there, they're all trying hard to make sure that they keep moving forward. Chile had a kind of a big growth in the very beginning, kind of like a lot of Latin American countries, and then the growth kind of slowed down a lot, and now it's just kind of slowly, steadily, just keep build brick upon brick, getting bigger and bigger, and it's funny how how many people actually know about the church in Chile. It was kind of surprising how many of them knew something of us. I thought it would be a lot less. And I think that's kind of the biggest shock for me in Chile, is that I thought I was going to expect just kind of not a lot of people knowing about us, but there was a lot of them. And I think it was dedicated by Father Pete Pratt. And so, if I recall, don't quote me on that. But if I recall correctly, that's how it was. He came to Chile and he tried preaching the gospel, but then I think his wife got sick and he wasn't very good at Spanish, and so he came back to the States saying, that when someone kind of masters the language, that's when Chile would be open. And that's what happened. It just started growing once some people came down here with the right tools.